Hi, everyone. Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law and Mediation, the MAAP community, which is tonight, and of course, the Why Do Pets Matter podcast. I'm so glad all of you are here. I can't wait to chat tonight because I just got through with a program yesterday for the New York Women's Bar Association, where I helped talk about helping attorneys make plans for their clients' pets. And it was interesting because I was on with a group from the ASPCA who gave great information about the legal terms and the rules and regulations and the different things in New York State that guide an attorney to build pet trust for a client. And then I came in, and as you know, I helped the client build their plan. The attorneys that were participating, which of course there are about 40 participants, and there were the three of us speaking, were really taken aback because I wasn't talking about what do we do with the law. I was talking about how do we help our clients make that plan for their pets that we can then plug into the legal documents. It is important to know what the legal requirements are in your state to create a pet trust. All 50 states have a pet trust. To create a document that's living as well as a document that is changeable, because hopefully we outlive some pets and get some new pets, and how do we put them in? There are legal things like powers of attorney and pet trusts and different money avenues through which you can, in fact, leave plans and money for your pet. However, when I talk about it, I talk about finding those people who know your pet, who want to take care of your pet, agree to take care of your pet, and who are not in it for the money that you're going to leave to care for your pet. That's really, it's funny, lawyers focus on how much should I leave, how much should I have my client leave for a dog who's 2 years old if, God forbid, they get hit by a bus tomorrow. And I'm always of the ilk that, well, the person who's taking it should get a bag of dog food and remuneration for coming, getting the dog and taking the dog, and maybe a vet visit. But that's about it, because they have agreed, and likely you have agreed with them, that you'll take their pet, they'll take your pet. The other big question was, and we've addressed it here in the MAAP community, who are the people who uh, take care of your pet? Are they all, or should they all be family members? And the rule here is they should not be family members, except maybe one. So your husband may get it, your kids may get it. However, if one of the attendees, there's a disaster, there's disease, there's dementia, there's disability, if someone's taking care of you, they are going to be so grateful that you found someone outside the family to take care of the pets, to give them a break, whether in the house, keeping the animal with you, or take it, bring it back and have you visit with it, or take it and give it a great life because it'll be too sad for you to see it. I know that when I received a dog from a woman who was dying of breast cancer, that's exactly what she did. She said, I'm going to keep the dog. And she didn't give it to a family member. She found someone who was going to make that dog a part of their family. And she said, I'll call you when I can't take care of her anymore. And she called me and she said, I really want you to come and get her. I can't take care of her. And I said, fine. Would you like me to bring her back so you can see her? And she said to me, I would love for you to bring her back for me to see her. However, it would be too hard for me to see her. And boy, do I know that feeling. When I gave my horse to a young girl to ride, I couldn't see him for like 10 years because it was just so heartbreaking for me that I didn't keep him, that I couldn't go to the stable and pet him. However, I knew that this girl was going to make a wonderful home for him. I knew she knew that if anything happened, I was there to help her. And she said, come visit anytime. But it's so hard to see our pets sometimes once we might have placed them with somebody else because our life has changed or our ability to care for them has changed. And so this is something you need to work out in your plan before anything occurs. So tonight, I'm going to go through what MAAP stands for again. I know some of you have heard it, but it's always good to go over it again, especially since this program, and I'm going to give another one, I think tomorrow, to a 4-H group on horses. It's worth repeating because all of us need to do this. I also got off a podcast about an hour ago, and of course, this person had pets. And I said to her, "Do you have a plan for your pets?" She goes, "Well, no." I said, "You at least have, you know, my rule, a card up somewhere saying, in the event of an emergency, do not remove these pets from the house. My chartreuse, my lime green, my bright yellow folder is on the desk, by the refrigerator, wherever it happens to be. And that gives you all the information for where my dogs, cats, birds, horses are to go. So we know we're supposed to do that. So I'm going to check in with everyone tonight. I'm so glad to see you. Stephanie, how is our Yoda and how are you?
Good, thanks.
Great. Is it cold and rainy there or is it mild?
Uh, Pretty much mild for the most part.
Oh, good. Wonderful. Yeah, we're having a rainy, sort of humid day here, which does a number on my hair, but um, it's very rainy here in North Carolina. So I'm so glad to see you. And Yoda's good. He's outside.
Not so much. It's still, I would say, on the chillier side,
Oh,
but
good.
sometimes,
Oh, good. Well, give
yeah.
him a big kiss for me. Um, Ken,
Mm,
if you want to introduce yourself again, I'd love it, and tell us who your pets are, and if you have any questions, pose them. We don't make anybody talk. So if you'd like to talk, fine. If not, that's fine. You are unmuted, so just, barge in whenever you can. Susan, how are you? And how's our Maggie?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. I had a little outbreak of psoriasis on my scalp, stress related, and I'm not sure if it's from Maggie's barking or not. But I did, you know, always thinking of ways that I can manage. And I think one of the tricks you used was throwing Cheerios
Yep.
away. I don't know how effective, but I'm thinking now I'm going to implement that strategy with
Yeah,
Maggie.
distract
But
her. If she's in the middle of barking and she's a food-driven dog, distract her. Throw some Cheerios on the
yeah,
floor. And that way she
yeah,
can't bark and
exactly.
eat at the same time.
Yeah, I mean Cheerios, popcorn, anything. Yeah,
Well,
anything to
popcorn's a little caloric. Cheerios is pretty non-abrasive, so to speak. Popcorn can be sometimes a little hard to digest. So that's why we always use as many Cheerios as possible and the generic kind. Like here in North Carolina, we have Harris Teeter. So Harris Teeter Cheerios, not you don't have to get her Cheerios.
don't have to get the brand name, right?
No, you can get the cheapest Cheerios and then throw them on the ground. In fact, when I took Stella for training, the trainer said, "Well, you can bring high value treats for the big things that you're training her for, and low value treats, which would be Cheerios, for just having her come." And every time she was training her to go, well, we were training her to go on a mat, so she knew where she was supposed to go. So we say, "Go to your place," and we throw Cheerios on it, and she would immediately go to the I guess it was sort of like a bed carpet kind of thing that we had dug up and given to her, and she loved it, and that's where she always is now. She's always laying on that bed, living in hope that it'll grow food.
Mhm.
Okay, it's so good to see you. Tell us a little bit about you and about your pets.
I I have a grand dog, Chihuahua. I'm always babysitting for my daughter, and I have my Chihuahua, which I thought I would never get a Chihuahua. I thought they were so ugly at first, no, way back. But I love my Chihuahua. She's so smart, and she thinks she's a pit bull.
I know they
And
do. The smaller they are, the more ferocious
yeah.
they can
And
be.
listening to you, you never think about things in advance, what to do. I never thought about, I thought about it, but I kind of like dismissed it from my mind, what I should do, how I set up for my dog, who's going to take care of my dog. So I have to start thinking about those type of things, who would be more responsible for my pet.
Yeah, because God forbid something happened to you, your daughter's one going to be with you. So
Right.
she's of course the first line and you're the first line for her. But if either one of you get sick, who's that next person who can come and help while you're helping her or she's helping you? Because that's
Right.
really, one of the big things. So I'm so glad you're here because we're going to go over what MAP stands for, navigating the journey your pet takes when you can't care for it. And tonight, when you get off the phone, the only thing you need to do is make a card that says, in the event of an emergency, please find all the information of what's your dog's name?
Sparkle.
Where Sparkle would go if something happened to me. And we always talk about nosy neighbors too, but I'm going to check in with Jan and Tonka and see how they're doing. And then we'll start with going over the MAP plan again. So everybody remembers and puts it in place. Jan, how's everything going? How's Tonka? Can you see? There you are.
We're well. Yeah, he doesn't do well with change. So a little bit of rerouting him lately. But
Yeah.
otherwise he's good. It's just him, and I feel blessed to have somebody who kind of gets him to
Yeah.
take him. And hopefully she will be, around
Here forever.
here forever. Exactly. Here forever.
Well, I'm so glad. It's so good to see you. And you've been really busy. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the programs you've been doing, because they've been so wonderful.
Oh, goodness. Well, every week I'm on LinkedIn for LinkedIn audio on Friday mornings, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, on various topics relating to health, wellness, not about pets, about your health, your wellness. And we don't really talk about pets on that much. And then I'm doing a number of workshops. So I have a workshop on March 17th. That's coming up on a Sunday, about rebirth and renewal. And that's in regard to spring and the season. And then I have it contains chocolate. That's all I have to say. No, it's called Heartfelt Psychology. We do a chocolate meditation and beautiful, beautiful practice of called heart mapping. So that is really fun too. Yeah. So just busy trying to.
Wonderful. Well, don't forget to send me the links so that I can put them in the notes for this call so people can sign up if they listen.
Okay. Thank you.
And I cut you off. You were saying one more thing about this weekend.
Oh, no. And so, no, that's, and every week I'm actually on a really kind of cool call that's called the Healthy Neighborhoods Project, about creating global healthier communities. So that's always fun, and people can.
And you have your book. Don't forget your book.
Yeah, I have my book. That's on pets. And I have my own podcast, which Deborah's been a guest on a number of times. Deborah's been a guest on a number of times, called Pets, People, Life, and Longevity.
Yep. It's a great podcast. I love it. I listen to it all the time. And your book is Pet.
Spoil Your Pet.
Yeah. And it's OIL, because they're the oils that create a better environment for your pets. So it really is a fabulous book. I've read it twice. It's dog-eared. And I have actually purchased some of the oils from our local farmers market to put into practice for my dogs, so that they can live their best life. And I vicariously live my best life because they smell so good. So there you go.
That's right.
And you said oil? You said oil? Excuse me, oil?
Yes, spoil,
Oh,
SPOIL.
spoil. Oh, okay.
But it's about essential oils that you can use with your pet to enhance their life and enhance your life at the same time.
Oh, like lavender?
Yeah, stuff like that. Lavender, other oils.
Eucalyptus.
Yeah.
Yep. I love it. I love it. So I'm so glad all of you are here. And what I'd like to do tonight, before you came on, Jan, I spoke about talking at a lunch and learn for lawyers yesterday. And the lawyers on the call, there were 3 of us, well, I'm a lawyer too, so I don't want to say I'm not a lawyer. I am a lawyer. However, I choose to be a little more homeopathic and authentic in pet ownership than just a regular litigator or trust and estate attorney. Actually, I help trust and estate attorneys understand what it is their pet owning clients need in order to create a plan for their pets. And so we had the ASPCA on with 2 of their wonderful attorneys who were talking about all the templates the ASPCA has on its website to write your own program, and it's all legal, and you bring it to your attorney. However, what it doesn't do is it doesn't really give you a template to fill out like the MAP plan does, about what is special about your dog and who are the people who you're going to appoint. It's not as user-friendly. It's very user-friendly for an attorney, not necessarily user-friendly for pet owners. So that's why I created the MAP plan. And MAP stands for something. So it's navigating the journey your pet takes when you can't care for it. And the M stands for making a plan, which is your first step. You have to make a plan for your pet. What is it you want your pet to receive if you can't care for it short-term or long-term? So the reason this plan came about was because I broke my ankle in 2013 and I had 9 dogs and they ate in the basement. Do you know how hard it is to get down a flight of stairs with a broken ankle? Not easy. And my husband and my son told me, we're taking care of you. We're not taking care of the dogs. And so that really was not an easy thing, but I was able to find someone to come in and take care of the dog. And I said to myself, this likely is not a unique situation. People just always think they're going to be there to take care of their pet. What started this program in earnest, I'd had off and on podcasts and workshops from 2013 to about 2020. But then when COVID hit, I started to have the podcast every Wednesday because when people got sick, they went to the hospital thinking they were just not feeling well, and then they never left the hospital. And they hadn't made a plan for their pet. And some of those pets were picked up by animal care and control, taken to animal care and control, held for 3 or 4 days, whatever the state law is for animal care and control to hold, trying to get in touch with the owner. Now, if you're on a ventilator, you're not answering your cell phone. So nobody answered the cell phone to say, yes, do this with my dog, do that with my dog, don't do this with my dog or cat. And so the animals were then released to a shelter. And once they're released to a shelter or a rescue and the animal is adopted, some of my brilliant legal colleagues have written great rescue contracts, which do not allow you to ever get your dog back again. Because if you don't answer the phone, it's considered abandoned. And so when they release the dog to the shelter or the rescue, they need to have title and agency to that dog. So they do. And so when they adopt it out to someone, that person gets clean title. So it's really a little scary if you're a pet owner, which is why I say you have to make your plan about what's going to happen to your pet if something happens to you short-term, broken leg, broken arm, going through chemotherapy. Long-term, you're suffering with dementia or you're starting to suffer with dementia and you can't care for it. Or, you have a stroke and can't care for it. Or you have a catastrophic accident and, you're laid up for months and can't care for it. So that's the long-term planning. And there are 2 different kinds of plans, but they're doable and they're makeable. That's why I do the workshop, because we sit there and build it together. And it's such a wonderful camaraderie because everybody's in the same boat. I don't know what the heck to do. Well, what about this or what about that? I never thought of that. I had a gentleman out in California when I held a workshop at a over 50 community. And he said, well, I don't know anybody who wants my dog. And I said, okay, so do you go to the dog park? He goes, well, yeah. I said, does the dog play with anybody at the dog park? He goes, well, yeah, he plays with this dog and that dog and the other dog. I said, why don't you have a conversation with those people at the dog park and say, listen, if something happens to me, would either of you be able to take Sparky? And if they can, then, get their name and address and say, could I put your name, out on my refrigerator so that you might take him short term. And then, if you can't keep him, then, we'll see what we can do. I always say an errand is spare and redundancy, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So this guy then turns to me because he's in his 80s and he says, yeah, but I don't want to take their dog if something happens to them. And I said, I don't know, it has to be quid pro quo, especially if they're younger than you. I said, but they might be perfect. And if their dog likes your dog and plays with your dog, it might be a wonderful place for your dog to end up. And nothing ventured, nothing gained. If you don't ask, they won't know. And then at the beginning of this call, I said that a lot of attorneys ask, how much money do you leave? And I said, well, you should really leave enough money to get the dog from point A to point B with a bag of food and a vet visit. Because the person who's taking your dog should take your dog because they know your dog, because they love your dog. Like Jan said, the person who cares for her dog when she's traveling is a godsend. And if she left the dog with this woman would probably, be okay with whatever money Jan had left with the dog. And Jan's probably had 2 or 3 conversations with her on what that is. And moving forward, people are good people. If something happens to you unexpectedly, if you leave the dog and you go off, to live in Margaritaville, maybe they'll have a little bit of a problem. But if something happens to you, everybody takes care of pets when they're left alone.
Yeah, what legalities are there? Say, for instance, if something happens to my dog, or if my dog bites their kid, or what happens in that area?
Well, if you have a dog that doesn't get along with kids, I wouldn't really have a caregiver who has kids. If your dog gets along with kids, great. But when we are doing the second letter, which is A, addressing the needs of the pet, that's where we list, well, this dog should go with kids, this dog shouldn't go with kids. This dog it needs to be kept in a big area or a small area. This dog needs to be on a leash, or it comes when it's cold so it can run off leash. This dog is afraid of thunder and lightning. This dog has medication. So you're addressing the needs of the pet, because it's so much better if you have a family member as well as somebody else, for them to know the idiosyncrasies of your dog. If Sally was on, she would talk about the fact that my dog, Roxy, who lives with her, doesn't like white fluffy dogs. I don't know why she doesn't like white fluffy dogs. She does not like white fluffy dogs. And if she sees one, she wants to eat it. Now, this is the sweetest dog walking the face of the earth, but if she sees a white fluffy dog, she wants to eat it. It doesn't matter the
A
size of the
marshmallow?
white fluffy dog.
It's a marshmallow. No.
It's a marshmallow, right? Maybe that's it. So it's really important to alert people. I know that Stephanie has spoken about things that are special about Yoda, and Susan has talked to us at length about special things about Maggie, because Maggie has a lot of personal issues that somebody needs to know if they're going to take Maggie and care for Maggie. And so does Jan. Jan has, as she said, Tonka doesn't like change. Well, that's something she would let someone know beside the caregiver. Her heir and spare would also know that Tonka doesn't really like change. He likes to stay. I mean, God forbid something happened to Jan, change would happen. But then you at least give them a heads up on what they need to know and how they need to care for the dog.
What if they don't follow it? What if they don't follow your written plan?
Well, if they don't follow your written plan, there are 3 people. It's always appoint caregivers, always 3. One would be a family member. So there would be someone who would follow your plan as you put it out. And then there would be people who check up and see if you're caring for the dog. Now, if they're caring, I always say to people when we're in workshops, there is the perfect plan, and then there's the that's okay plan. So if you have 10 things that you want Sparkle to have as part of her life, and somebody can give her 5 of those things and the other 5 are nice to haves, not gotta haves, then that's okay. Because sometimes somebody might not have a backyard and you have a backyard now, but they may take the dog on a walk 17 times a day. And so maybe Sparkle would like that better, right? Because she might like to go on a walk. There's never, I used to have people who said, how could you sell an Irish setter to someone who lives in an apartment? I said, mostly because either their apartment will be eaten, the walls and everything else, or that dog will get a heck of a lot of exercise. And sure enough, everyone I sold to an apartment was out walking their dog 4 or 5 times a day. Where the people who I sold who had big backyards just put the dog out, and then the dog made a lunar surface in their backyard because the dog was bored. So what is the better outcome, right?
Yeah.
So you make the plan for the care of the pet and you give it to the caregiver, and you always alert the caregivers to each other. So Susan and Stephanie and Jan are your caregivers along with your daughter, and they all know each other, and they all know what you want to do with your pet, and they all help each other achieve that, so that if something happens to you, and then Susan takes the dog, if Susan can't maintain the dog, then Stephanie and Jan can be asked by Susan, or they can suggest to Susan that maybe, they could help her, they could take the dog, whatever it is, so that there's always that redundancy. Jan, you had a question.
No, it was just a comment because I think when I was starting to make my plan, first of all, I realized that nobody was probably going to care for him like I was.
Never.
And no matter what I wanted, and I kind of really had to prioritize in my head of what I really thought was important. And I said to Deborah one day that my friend who does take him absolutely loves him, and he loves her. So when push comes to shove, a lot of the stuff that I consider important, like I'm a very big rule setter. Like he knows that, and let me tell you, he pushes the limits in her house. He counter surfs. He would never counter surf in my house
Because
ever.
he knows it's sort of like a free-for-all.
Yeah, but on the other hand, she loves him and he has the best time there and she does take good care of him. It's just not how I would care for him. So I kind of had to step back and say, okay, like get a grip here, mom, and just like get it in perspective kind of thing.
I remember we were talking about this, Jan. You said, I always thought he needed to be an only dog. And then I saw him with my caregiver and all of her dogs and realized, oh shit, he doesn't mind being with other dogs. He really likes being with other dogs. So what we perceive for our dogs, there's the gotta have. So he's, because they're runners, they have to be in a fenced in 6-foot backyard. Or if they're not good with children, then they can't go to children. And you have to alert the people who are taking them that if they're near children, you have to have them on a short leash and be careful. And then if they take the dog and you're sick or you're ill, or, they're the onus is on them. They take the responsibility, because if you hand them a document that says, you've agreed to care for Sparkle. And Sparkle is a really good dog. She's totally housebroken. You have to let her out 3 times a day. If you don't let her out 3 times a day, maybe have wee-wee pads or whatever. And if you don't have wee-wee pads, say she's never going to go. So she's going to get a urinary tract infection. So you really need to let her out 3 times a day. You need to walk her, or, stand outside with her. I mean, my new English Cocker Spaniel will not pee unless we're standing outside with her, because my husband started that, not me. I would never have done that. However, now we have to stand outside with Stella or she doesn't pee. So, these are the things that you tell the new caregivers. And if they don't abide by it, you've given them notice, you've been transparent, and the liability will be on them not following your directives, not you not telling them, which is why making a plan and letting people know. I mean, it always breaks my heart when people pass away. I had a person who was a club member who passed away with 6 dogs. And her brother came and he knew nothing about the dogs. She had 6 Irish setters. They were all red. So his thought was, well, they're all the same, right? Well, no, they're a boy and girl, so we can always tell those apart. That's easy. But he couldn't tell them apart otherwise. And then the Irish setter people came who were her friends, who had co-bred with her and things, and said, oh, we know what she wanted to do with them. And so they took the dogs. And he called me because I was his first contact. And he said, I'm really worried that what happened to Jan's dogs is what Jan wanted to happen to her dogs. And I said, I know, I wish she had written down what it was she wanted done with her dogs, because I'm pretty sure the people who co-own the dogs or were her friends did what she would have wanted them to do or told them to do, but they had nothing in writing and he couldn't check up. So this is the other reason why we write it down and make a plan, because if your family members are there, there's no ambiguity. Okay, if something happens to me, Sparkle goes to my daughter. But if my daughter can't take care of it, then Jan has stepped up, Stephanie has stepped up, and Susan has stepped up. And the 3 of them said they would take care of Sparkle. The first one, of course, would be Jan, because Sparkle loves her. And then Stephanie, Sparkle really likes as well. And she likes Susan, but if push comes to shove, Jan's the one she likes the best. But if Jan can't take her, then Stephanie or Susan can. And if something happens, because what usually occurs is we make these plans with our friends. Then we don't check in every year, because that's the most important part. And they move to a non-dog building where they can't have dogs, and they don't bother to tell you. And you said, but wait a minute, you were going to take my dog. Oh shit, I totally forgot, because they forget. So it's make a plan. That's the M. Appoint caregivers. Appoint 3, and only one can be a family member. Redundancy is key. And advise those caregivers of what the idiosyncrasies of your dog is, which is under address the needs of the pet. So if they're petrified and will take off for parts unknown on the 4th of July, you need to let them know so they can put them in a secure room. They can turn music on, so that the dog won't be, getting out and getting away. If someone doesn't own a dog like that, they won't know to keep a close eye on a dog on the 4th of July unless you tell them. And the final piece is, of course, publishing that plan, which means you have to publish it with your veterinarian so he knows, she knows who the people are who are going to take your dog, that they're allowed to have the dog cared for in your absence, that you are going to say that if Jan or Stephanie or Susan bring the dog in because it's sick, they are permitted to have the dog treated and I will take responsibility for paying for the dog. Or if it's already been transferred, then it's their responsibility to care for the dog, but at least you've let the dog's veterinarian know. Let your lawyer know, because it's so important for the lawyer to know what these plans are so he can call Jan or Susan or Stephanie if your daughter doesn't want the dog or can't take the dog. And you want to let your nosy neighbor. So your nosy neighbor might not want Sparkle, might not even like Sparkle really very much. However, if you let your nosy neighbor know, listen, if anything ever happened to me, if I'm carried out by EMS, please tell them to leave Sparkle in the house because my daughter will be here to take care of it. And if my daughter isn't, my 3 friends will. Here's a piece of paper. Show EMS and Animal Care and Control that I've told you not to let this dog be taken because you know who the people are and here's the telephone numbers and you're going to call them to come over and take care of Sparkle or take care of Tonka or take care of Yoda or Maggie because you want the dog to stay put. What happened during COVID was terrible, but there was nobody made a plan. Nobody thought they were going to stay in the hospital. So that's the nutshell version of the MAP plan. I'm going to put together a workshop probably during the summer when people have a little bit of downtime so we can all work together to finish up the MAP plans. Does anybody have any questions for me tonight?
Yes, I missed the other A. You say the 1A is for appointment.
Appoint caregivers, and the other A is for address the needs of your pet.
Oh, address. Okay.
Yeah. So Jan, any words of wisdom? Because I know you've been here almost since the beginning. And I mean, I know we've gone over MAP so often that you could probably recite it in your sleep, but does it give you a little peace of mind to go over it again?
Always, because as we're just in conversation, recently I was asked to walk this dog, and so Tonka and I figured I'd walk him with Tonka, but it was a 6-month-old golden doodle puppy that was absolutely off the wall. And literally he was like that energy of being around a puppy. I mean, he's now 12, still very active, but he's like, it was like he wasn't having anything to do with it. And so just kind of making me think about the people I know, because, they might not be the perfect match at this point, especially also because his personality is changing as he ages. Like us all, like he gets crotchety, like he's really active, but he has this, he's not the same laid back, in that way, certain ways that he used to be.
They get to be like us, right? There are things we can take when we're younger and now we're like, not so much.
Not so much. Exactly.
Susan, anything you want to add?
No, it's just that I continue to struggle with Maggie because one reason I haven't really rehomed her has been because I don't think anyone would take her. And I feel a responsibility to deal with her behavior issues before I can even think about asking someone to help me out with this dog. And I'm really struggling with that. So
have you not gotten any information from, is it David or Dan who we connected you with, or did you find someone nearby that was
that
going
was Doug. Yeah, Doug.
Right.
He had helped me out a little bit. And I do need to get back to working with him. It's just been, right now is a crazy time planning for my move and all of that. And
Have you sold the house yet or not yet?
we haven't sold it, no, but I have a contract on the house and it's going to start construction in April. So things are going forward, and
Maybe
I
you
think
need some
that's the other
senior-
reason I'm really stressed out right now. So
Yeah,
I'm hoping I'll find some good people in Williamsburg who can help me out.
absolutely. It's a big city. You should. Stephanie, anything to add?
No, thanks so much. This was awesome review.
Great, wonderful. Wonderful. Give Yoda a kiss for me. Kay, anything, any other questions you have? Anything to add?
Not at the moment, no.
Perfect. Well, we're so glad you're here. We're here every first
you.
and third Wednesday. Until next time, which will be the 20th of March. I'll be here. Kiss your babies for me. Kiss Sparkle. Kiss Naughty Maggie. Kiss Yoda. And of course, the wonderful Tonka. I can tell you, Jan, that since the English Cocker came, that Junie has really disliked young dogs too. So Tonka has a friend in Junie. He's had about enough. And that he has any ear feathering left is a miracle. And let me tell you, I take her to task all the time. But she's an English Cocker Spaniel. And as I said to my girlfriend who's getting one, I said, they have opinions, just remember, and they don't care about your opinion. They just look at you like, too bad, I'm doing it my way. So just letting everyone know that Stella is, yes, still alive, but just as naughty as can be. So until March 20th, make sure you have your sign up in your house somewhere very conspicuous that says, please do not remove my dog from this house. Look for the chartreuse, the yellow, the orange, the pink, whatever bright color file, so that you can then put down the names and telephone numbers of the people who someone could call to make sure they can take care of your pet in case something happens to you. And of course, the nosy neighbor is very important, because the nosy neighbor will then make sure they don't take your dog, and you'll be able to know that the dog will be cared for either by your family member or one of your 3 caregivers. So until March 20th, this is Deborah Hamilton. I'm so glad all of you are here, and give your babies a kiss for me. Bye, guys.